Yourself.
My name is Courtney Macchiarella, and I am a kindergarten teacher at Springbrook Elementary School in Indian Prairie, District 204.
Great. And then what was the lesson today?
The lesson that you saw was a math lesson at the kindergarten level that involved number stories and putting two numbers together using a variety of different manipulatives.
Great. Okay, so starting out, we want to understand the decisions you made in planning for this lesson and how it fits into the unit and year. First question, how does this lesson connect to and build on students' prior skills and knowledge?
Students have been working on a variety of different things. We start with counting and cardinality, which is being able to count, rotely and counting that way, and that's kind of where we begin at, identifying numbers, and then we get a little more complicated with adding some number stories into our everyday through math journals and things of that nature. We have been working on various ways to show how to put two numbers together and how to show that and not just give an answer, but go a little bit deeper with what our thinking was when we got to that answer. And so the previous lessons have been individually using those manipulatives, such as the counting cubes and the counting chips and whiteboards and drawing pictures and things like that. And so each day we did a lesson on how to use that manipulative to show our answer and to show our math thinking. And then today was kind of the culmination of putting those things together and having the children choose which one they are more comfortable with and what they feel like would express their math thinking the best.
You talked a little bit about what you taught previously. So what was taught before this lesson and what is going to come after it?
Before this lesson, we taught a variety of different things, such as what a number story is, pulling the important pieces from a number story, which then being able to use those manipulatives to show those important pieces, such as the knowing what altogether means and being able to say, well, we have a number 3 and a number 2, 3 buttons and 2 buttons, and what does that mean when we show putting them all together? So those were kind of some of the previous lessons in using a variety of different manipulatives to show those answers. And what will be coming afterwards will be more scaffolding, and we'll be adding more manipulatives, giving them more options and choices, and even adding some of our number stories will begin to have 3 or 4 numbers in them, which will begin to challenge them being able to use the manipulatives in different ways as well.
Great. Talk about the standards or cluster targeted in this lesson. What did you do to make the lesson reflect the full intent of that standard or cluster?
The cluster and the target that was in this was being able to show addition and putting numbers together in various ways. Do they want specific standards?
You can take it either way.
Okay.
You can get specific, or you can just continue on as, a reference to
Okay.
standard. Okay.
And the standard talks about using fingers and counting chips and drawings and manipulatives and things like that. The standard discusses about that and being able to show that within the number 10. That's the kindergarten standard within the number 10. So all of the number stories that I used today followed that standard within the number 10. And again, we will be adding more numbers, but for now, we stayed within that standard that we were working with.
Which of the core action indicators do you think this lesson best exemplified?
I felt that the core action, that there were several. I might have to look.
You want me to take a pause?
Yeah, do you mind?
Yeah, no problem. You want me to read it again?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Specifically, I think it really hones in on the core action indicator for core action 1A and 1B. 1A talks about the lesson focused on the cluster and the standard that is within the Common Core standards, and I feel that the lesson really did hone in on that, adding within and using manipulatives within 10. And cluster or core action 1B, it relates to the student's prior knowledge. I've done a lot of scaffolding with the previous lessons, which then activates that children's prior knowledge with using those manipulatives and being able to show their math thinking through that. With core action 2, it talks about, the teacher, core action 2B, talks about the teacher giving the students time to work through problems and was able to do that through a partner activity, and each student was able to take a turn and then also learn from their peer, as well as being able to hear their peers' math thinking and then their own math thinking as well. And then I also was able to, I believe, Core Action 2E, which talks about the teacher checking for understanding, and I was able to kind of go from group to group and really see if that understanding was happening, and being able to pose those high quality questions to the students who may have needed a little more guidance or a little more guidance or a little more, some prompting to help them explain to their partner and use that math thinking instead of just showing with the manipulatives, but also using those words to help them do that.
We're interested in how the shifts required by the CCSS are being incorporated into the classroom. Discuss how this lesson illustrates the shifts required by the CCSS.
Oh, okay. The first shift is focus, and the focus of the lesson was through the standard, with the adding within 10. So that really I was really able to hone in on that standard. So I believe the focus of the lesson was key to what the students were learning and what the students needed to learn, and what the outcome of the lesson, what was needed to be. For the third shift, which is coherence, which is thinking across the grade levels, especially with kindergarten, it's very important that we set that firm base, because as they go through the rest of their career in education, they are going to be building upon that knowledge, just the basics of addition and what addition looks like, and how do I show addition and talk about addition. And so that they're going to move on through up to first grade, where they're going to be doing more with addition, and they're going to be doing higher level thinking with beyond the number 10. So just kind of cross grade level through that, just through that addition piece is going to stay with them for throughout their career and throughout their their lives. And the last one was the rigor, and the rigor of this lesson, giving that conceptual understanding and also giving the procedural skills and the fluency and application. And they were able to show their fluency of using those manipulatives through the number sense that has already been in place from the beginning of the year, and then move into applying that fluency and applying that knowledge into their thinking with their addition and their math talking, and being able to use those manipulatives to show that.
Okay. How did you teach the content of this lesson prior to the CCSS?
The content of this lesson was taught quite a bit later in the school year than it does now. Prior to the Common Core standards, we really focused on some other aspects of math prior to, with patterning and things of that nature, which are now not part of the standards, and we're getting more we're able to teach more in depth with the addition, where before we would skim just the topic of addition. Now we're giving them choices on how to show with manipulatives and things like that to show their thinking, which before we were giving them manipulatives, but not necessarily giving them the choice of which manipulative to use, and giving them that deeper understanding of what addition is, what it looks like, and being able to talk about that. And the Common Core standards have really given us the opportunity to spend the time that we weren't able to spend because we were trying to cover so many topics, and the Common Core standards have really honed in and focused on certain topics and clusters and standards that we're now able to focus on and do that. Before it was the mild, wide, inch deep, and now we want to go mile deep and an inch wide. So
I'm gonna let the plane pass.
Yeah. That picks it up.
Uh-huh.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
I know. Let me actually pause it. Okay, so student engagement is crucial to the work of the CCSS. We want to understand how you ensured that all students had the opportunity to productively engage in the work of the lesson. First question, how did the students handle this lesson? Did they understand the mathematics of the lesson?
I felt that overall the students handled it very well. I felt that because they were engaged with another person, it was a partner activity, they were able to hone in on what their partner was doing, and then when it was their turn to share out their thinking, they were able to share out that. So each student was engaged in and participating, not only as the listener, but also as the participant, which ups the level of engagement, and they really have to hone in on what their partner is saying and ask the questions to their partner about what their thinking was. So the students, I believe, really did grasp the concept. A lot of them were choosing a variety of different manipulatives. They're not necessarily going to the same one each time, which shows me that they have that mathematical knowledge to use a variety of different manipulatives, which was fantastic to see.
Explain how you differentiated in the lesson. Did all students have the opportunity to work on grade level content? If all students did not, explain.
Okay. The differentiation comes with the idea of the partnering, taking the turns, the A and the B. The differentiation was the way that I allowed them to choose which manipulative that they wanted to use, and being able to, the higher level thinking was like showing the equation where, a student who might be above grade level is able to write those equation out and use, the math words that they want, that it's a little more in-depth and higher level, where, the student who is more of a lower level student, they were able to use counting chips or something. So it was that different variety of items that kind of went at all different levels, that the students all knew how to manipulate, and they didn't feel comfortable with writing an equation. They had a different thing to use, a different manipulative to use during that time, and all students were able to have that grade level content knowledge just by being able to have the stories read to them, the number stories read to them, and being able to hone in on those questions and having those high quality questions asked to all students by myself and by their peers.
Good. Let's see. Which behaviors from Core Action 3 did the students best exemplify in this lesson? And what actions have you taken as a teacher to make that happen?
One of the things from Core Action 3 that I think has been, as an educator, has been mildly difficult is having those students persevere through those challenging questions. As an educator, you want your children to succeed. You want your students to, feel successful and things of that nature. So when something's hard for them, it's very hard for you not to just kind of give them the answer. And as educators, we want them to learn and we want them to feel successful and feel good about themselves. And so persevering through those challenges and part of that is asking the right questions. So guiding them and giving them those correct questions, which is something that as an educator I've been working on and continue to work on. And the Common Core Standards and with Core Action 3, 3.1, it's been given, or 3A, excuse me, is giving that challenge to those students and really making those students use their thinking and their words to express what they want. Core Action 3 also talks about students having conversations with each other and the math conversations that are happening instead of me standing up in front of the class and for 45 minutes just giving them the answers and one student coming up and giving the answers. That's changed quite a bit. Those students are allowed to have those conversations with each other and learn from each other. A student who may not have known one way to show, adding two numbers together have now seen a different way and have heard their peers talk about it. So those conversations are very important for all students and as educators to make sure that we are understanding and knowing what the children have continued to need to know or what they already have known.
Okay, great instructors are continuously learning. We want to understand what you celebrated in this lesson and what you would improve upon. Reflecting on the lesson, what worked particularly well and what might you do differently?
I felt that students worked particularly well with each other, and I celebrate the fact that many of them chose different manipulatives to use, and that they felt comfortable using those manipulatives, and they were able to explain why they did that, and that was something that I feel was really strong in the lesson today. Something that I think that that I found that I would probably change a little bit was I might demonstrate myself first, and at first I just had students come up. I might demonstrate a couple of myself as the educator and then move on and have the students demonstrate a couple more for me, just so they can see what my math thinking is and give that model and that example.
Okay. Were there any surprises or unexpected student behaviors or reactions to today's lesson?
Overall, I think it went very well. Nothing really surprises me in kindergarten.
That's it. You're done.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.